Okay, got a really warm, hot day here in October, and we're going to do a little spalling today. A lot of times when you go out in the field and you go out there to bring some rock home, you end up with a lot of big chunks like this. You don't always get flat, tabular pieces, and when you get these things home, you got to either saw them up or spall them out. And the way you go about spalling them kind of depends on what you intend to do with the pieces you get off of it. If you're going to make arrowheads and stuff like that, then you'd just be removing small thin flakes. But if you want to get some blades or some spear points out of these things, you need to take off some pretty big spalls. Down here we got various hammerstones, and I really like the use of these hammerstones for busting up pieces in this size range right here. These are a couple of local ones down here from Laguna Beach, pretty close to where I live. They tend to be soft a little bit. They're pretty good on obsidians and dacites, not so good on flints and cherts. These are from Utah, and they're just fantastic. When you find these things, a lot of times, like this one here, I haven't used yet, and it's really smooth and hard on the exterior. And sometimes, if you pick up something like that, you might be tempted to throw it away because it just bounces off when you go to use it. But if you just stick with it for a little bit, it doesn't take long before it gets pitted on the end, like this one here is. This is a really good spaller. And this rough exterior right here grabs the surface and throws off some really nice flakes. And it's good and hard, and you can get some pretty thick flakes that way. So we'll sit down here and we'll get started. Before we do, just kind of go over some of these. This is rainbow obsidian from Davis Creek. And you might notice that it's got some lines in here, so when you're spalling something like that, you need to get your spalls to kind of travel in the direction of the lines, not entirely in alignment with it, but offset about 20 or 30 degrees, just like you would if you were sawing it. So sometimes you want to keep that in mind if you're dealing with something special like rainbow obsidian. The rest of these, it's good to study them ahead of time, and if they have a flat face that's fairly large, like this one does right here, a lot of times that'll be where your final core. A lot of times what I'll do is try and get a biface out of the biggest piece, and then of course you can get a lot of smaller bifaces out of the spalls that come off of it. So each one has its own strategy for dealing with them. We'll go into that now. Oh, a couple more things here. This stuff right over here, this is dacite from Arizona, and I might end up busting one of these up because I think the color will show up a little bit better in the video. Picked a sunny morning to do this, so I'm hoping that'll make it a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. But this stuff is brittle, and it tends to have a lot more flaws than the dacite or the obsidian. And over here, these are Pedernales nodules. These are really nice, and most people will saw this stuff up, but if you bust it upright, you can get a lot of nice big spalls out of it. So try and give a little example of that too. And when we get done, we'll try and make a super thin biface. Been doing quite a bit of that lately here, and that'll probably be for another day or maybe next week. And we got fires all over up in the hills up here. Okay, we're going to start off with this piece of Arizona dacite here, sort of a greenish gray color. And this stuff a lot of times will have flaws. It's not the best piece, but it should be suitable for what we're going to do here. Sometimes the first few flakes coming off will crack and break because of flaws right under the cortex here, the outer surface of the rock. Now, because we're going to be making large spalls, I don't want to hit it right on the edge. I'm just going to crush the edge, or I would create small flakes that are probably going to break anyway. So I'm going to be hitting it right about in here and driving off a bigger flake. Now when you first start, you need to have a platform, a natural platform, in order to get your first flake off, which is why I'm choosing this area right here. If that wasn't there, I'd have to create one somewhere else, and what you do is you look for the sharpest angle that you can find just to get down into the interior of the rock, and you kind of go from there. A lot of times with alternate flaking or whatever it takes, but we've outlined our strategy here. We're going to hit it right here. Hopefully the flake will come off in there, and that'll be suitable for, if it doesn't break, for for a spearhead or small knife. When I'm supporting it, I'm trying to keep it up off the pad if possible. That also keeps these flakes from breaking when they fly off the cork. Okay, that flake did break, but you can see there's actually some grain to this rock right here. Would have been a nice one though, even as it is. There's a couple of nice points in there. Now we look at it. It only takes maybe 5 minutes to do this. Setting it up. We'll take another one off right in here. Alright. It's a little thick, but that's a nice spall for working into something. Maybe in here, if I can set this up, we can drive one off. You still have to set up platforms. No, that's not going to get it there. Instead, I'll drive one right in here. We'll get a flake to go off and clean this area up. Okay. Came off in here. Again, it broke. This dash sight is pretty famous for doing that. Now I'd like to get one right in here, follow along this ridge. It's kind of a narrow ridge, so it probably will break, but I'm keeping it up off the pad to try and keep it from not too bad. Get some nice thick usable spalls there that can be worked down into other tools. You notice I'm not abrading because I'm not hitting on the edge. If I was hitting on the edge for a thin flake, I'd need to abrade it. But because I'm actually hitting right about in here, perhaps a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch away from the edge, I don't need to. This one won't go very far, but it might make a nice ball. Holding it up off of here. That one kind of broke up. Let's set some things up. Okay, now we got one here. Except that there's a crack right in there. There's a nice spall. Getting rid of that overhang. Try and get one off of here. Got to hit it right about in there. I'm hitting it kind of down like that, and then the flake will go off at an angle, maybe 30 degrees or so from the actual point of impact. And I'm using this sort of in a punching manner. I'm not hitting it like this. I'm striking it in, which makes it you get a lot of control that way. Ferris ball. There's a nice one.